Welcome back, Senior Devs. Sean Cannon here. In this lesson, we're going to talk about multitasking, the myths surrounding it, and a better alternative. What do you do when you're in the middle of working on a file and your calendar reminds you that you need to attend a weekly meeting? If you're in the office, do you bring your laptop with you and continue working during the meeting? If you're working remotely, do you just put the meeting on the conferencing software in the background and listen to it while you continue to code? What you're essentially doing is splitting your focus between two things at the same time. What if the meeting entails a slideshow or a screen share? Do you attempt to code and listen to the people in the meeting and look at the visual reference being discussed? We all work with people who work through meetings, and if you ask most of them about something that was covered in the meeting several days later, they won't be able to recall it. If they were engaged in the meeting, then odds are it took them just as long to finish the code had they simply just waited until after the meeting to focus on it, and the odds of them introducing bugs in their commit are much higher because of the distractions. A number of states in the US have already made it illegal to talk on your cell phone and drive at the same time, and some won't even let you drive and eat at the same time. These laws are based on the fact that if your focus is divided, accidents are more likely to happen. Recent studies have also shown that when people are forced to change gears in the middle of a task, valuable time is lost. The more complex the task, the more time is lost. The lost time is the time that's usually spent by the frontal lobe of your brain making decisions and establishing priorities. In our line of work, these typically come as scheduled distractions, like meetings or team events, where you're not expected to interact necessarily, but you're expected to consume the knowledge and understand the decisions that were made in the meetings so you have appropriate direction moving forward on your projects. If your focus is on your laptop, you're not receiving the information, and if your focus is on the meeting, then your code quality is at risk. These situations simply demand your time and presence, but not necessarily your focus, which is why it's tempting to want to continue to work through them. If it's not a meeting, maybe you're starting another ticket while you're waiting for a build to finish. If the build fails, now you're 15 minutes into a new file and you have to go back to the old file. What I typically recommend for these situations is to take the opportunity to do some busy work, like checking emails or doing code reviews, something that you can drop on a dime regardless if the build passes or fails. Situations that demand your focus make it near impossible to multitask. For example, if you're working on a file and another dev pings you in a chat asking for help solving a bug, or if you're asked to jump on a call and explain something or prove something in a small group. Odds are you can't continue to work on other items during these situations because you have to both focus and engage with the new task. Most often, when you're put in these situations, your ability to problem solve and participate is very high because you're giving all your focus to the other dev and their issue. You can't do anything else because they're depending on you in real time. It likely wouldn't even occur to you to check your emails or catch up on Facebook when pairing with another dev. This is called single handling. It's the opposite of multitasking, and it's how we're going to learn how to finish an 8-hour day in 3 hours instead of dragging out 3 hours of work over 8 hours. What we want to do is address the two problems we have with the previously mentioned situations. The first problem being that your work is being treated as a second-class deliverable. The meeting or pairing session feels more important because there's urgency attached, but you getting your work done is likely just as essential as your peers getting their work done. The more of a mentor and manager that you become, the fewer technical tasks you'll be asked of you, and you'll have much more time to assist your team. If this doesn't happen, then your role and responsibilities are misaligned, and you need to move onward and upward to a new employer. We'll cover this in a later module. The second problem is that when you come back to your work after having been distracted with another task, you have to get back into flow state and pick up where you left off. That takes both time and mental energy, like I mentioned earlier. We want to avoid the starting and stopping as much as possible. Pretend we're trying to get the best gas mileage possible from our brain, and we want highway miles, not city miles. Planned stops versus rush hour traffic. Several years ago, Stephen Covey wrote a very famous book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We were forced to read it and write reports on it in high school. One thing that stuck with me from that book was the 4 quadrants of any task at hand. The task is either unimportant and not urgent, unimportant and urgent, important but not urgent, or important and urgent. The goal, of course, is to try to do the important and urgent things before doing unimportant and not urgent things. The other two can be prioritized based on your time blocks and agenda for the day. For example, if you have 20 unread emails, you don't have to read all 20. You can spend 5 to 10 seconds on each email and decide if it's trash or something that needs to be dealt with later. If it is important and urgent, you deal with it immediately, and if it's urgent but not important, then you weigh how long it will take. If it takes more than 5 minutes to complete, do it later, otherwise do it immediately. Find a system that works for you, but the principle is the same for all tasks like this. Having a system in place like this can drastically help you reduce your daily distraction potential. Most distractions come from other people thinking their task is more important than your task, and you need to decide whose career is more important, yours or theirs. I'm not saying don't help your peers. I'm saying schedule your availability. Please understand that people who distract you are for the most part not trying to be inconsiderate of your time. My kids will randomly come into my office and say hi, and as much as I want to tell them that I need to focus on a ticket, I personally put my family above my work, so it's a bit of a welcome distraction. I do have signals that I use to let people around me know when I really need to focus. At home, I'll simply close my office door, and that tells my family that I'm either on a work call or I need to focus for a while. And then in exchange, I'll take a longer break and hang out with them at lunchtime. In my work environment, when I start working a ticket, I usually set my chat status to do not disturb so that my colleagues know I fully intend to ignore them. They're welcome to leave me a message, but I have no intention of reading them until my status is set back to available. The trick is to communicate upfront with your supervisors and peers so they don't see you as an isolate just working in a cave, because as I've said on previous modules, and I firmly believe, communication and collaboration are huge in this field. Find your balance, and instead of just shutting out your team when you need to focus, communicate to them that you're shutting them out so you can focus. It may sound silly, but it's really important. Lastly, when you feel the urge to multitask and you're in the middle of a file, I recommend doing what I do. I write a to-do comment that reads, "Left off here," with a quick one-liner stating what I was doing and what I plan to do next. It's really all I need to restore my focus after an undetermined period of time doing another task. That wraps up this module. Keep growing, and I'll see you in the next one.